That was half my presentation. No, kidding. Um, when he says energetic, he says my ADHD meds have just kicked in. Uh, thank you, Ivor. Well, I'm Marijke. Um, yeah, that's my face. I have a habit of waving with my hands, so I'm going to try real hard not to get rid of the sound half of the time. And I'm also going to try not to click this button all the time. Before we get started, my website, there's a QR code here. I have a professional website, I have a blog, I am very active on Fostodon. My blog and professional website are here. I have another QR code coming up, but that one, I'm not entirely sure if it's scannable. Yep, we there. Who am I? I actually hate having slides, so this is the most amount of text I ever had on a slide, which means that I have no clue what's on there. My name is Marijke, which absolutely no one who is not Dutch knows how to pronounce. So I keep telling people it's pronounced Marijke, and that's now my company name. I am a freelance developer, as Ivor said. I specialize in Python and Django. My first love is HTML and CSS, and I love it so much that I hate the industry and just decided not to do it professionally. I've also always been an accessibility evangelist, which is important because we're getting back to that. I'm also occasionally a mentor or a coach or a teacher. I'm going to wrap up 3 years of being a teacher at a local IT studies in July, which is bittersweet because it's cool, like teenagers, awesome students. And I'm now a member of the Django Software Foundation, which we're also getting back to. And I need to breathe for a moment. Okay, but first, I know it's early. I'm, anyone who hasn't had their morning coffee yet? Good. Someone's still drinking it. I kind of hope that someone gets this reference. This is a pun. Space puns are a thing here. We're getting back to that as well. From the go, no go moment for the powered descent of the Apollo 11 on the moon surface. And I like this because there's a song made by Public Service Broadcasting who made a cool song about this. Yay, we got a fan here. So I kind of want to do one go, no go moment and just ask you go, no go for the presentation that everyone says go. And then I mean go as in go and not the programming language, so you're not cussing in a Python space. Can we do that? Sure. Okay. So, go, no go for presentation. Go. Yay. Wow, I'm so proud of you. So, open source development. I didn't do it for years, even though I kind of wanted it. And why did I not do it? There was no time for it. Like, I've always worked startups, and there's a shortage of developers everywhere. Like, they're not going to pay you to do 1 or 2 days of development. And I wasn't doing it at home either, because who's going to do a lot of programming when they've done it at work all day, Kind of, it's not my thing. I like other things too. And I really didn't know where to start, and all that combined, and then came ADHD paralysis, which basically means that you're doing everything in your head and not physically, which is really annoying if you want to get shit done. Oh, got us demonetized already. I'm good. Yay. But then I got back to, I finally did it. Why did I do it? And now I'm regretting that I don't have the slides here, because I actually wanted to do this without slides. Let's see. Yes, OSS isn't free. Like, open source software is free to use, but it's not free in a sense, like you're sort of supposed to pay back to it with your time or your effort or your research or your money, because that's the only way how you can make a very complicated framework together. And because if you have to build like a Django or a Flask or whatever it is we use from scratch, that's going to take months, years, millions. It's not doable. So instead we build this stuff together. And I thought it was time to give back after all those years. And the real reason was I became a freelancer, and I suck at acquisition. I also don't like acquisition. So suddenly I had spare time. And I was like, if I'm going to invest in myself, this is the time to do it, because I have spare time now. Now, for my favorite one, exposure. You know, the bane of every person who likes to get paid for their work, exposure. But I needed it, ironically, because I realized that I was a woman without, like a saleswoman without a storefront. All my fancy stuff was hidden behind NDAs. I didn't have it anymore. I had to leave it behind at the places where I worked. And I hadn't done open source. And I really hate doing projects without any use. So I wasn't really the demo person. So ADHD only works under pressure. So if there's no pressure to do things, I won't do it. So again, no demo projects. So I was like, okay, let's solve 2 problems in one go. Also, I was getting curious, and I just really wanted to put this render of our favorite Mars rover in here. I mean, look at it. It's adorable, right? Yeah. No? Okay. I saw some nods. And then came the community hive. I was due to present at Django Day Copenhagen in October last year. And as always, ADHD got the best of me. I didn't prepare, so I was doing my slides 20 minutes before the presentation, as one does, or maybe an hour. And then 2 slots before me, there was Sarah Boyce, and she is now one of the 2 Django fellows, so she gets paid to be the lead maintainer of the project, which is cool. She didn't know it then, but I think she started in April. And when she is enthusiastic about something, you will know. So she started talking, and first I was like, who is she? Djangonaut Space, yeah, whatever. I don't have time for that. I need to get my presentation up. And then she started talking, and I was like, this is cool. And we'll get back to the details. Because it kept spinning in my mind, like, okay, this is super cool. And then I spoke to her later, and then people in Fostodon started attacking me, like, oh, you should really apply. And then I already did. Like, I did something like months beforehand, and I normally don't do that. That's how hyped I was. So, Djangonaut Space. I'm trying not to do an entire presentation about what it is, because we can absolutely do that. But in short, it's an 8-week mentorship program where 6 teams learn how to become a contributor to Django or Core or one of its other packages. And it's super international. They really wanted to expand beyond just the US and Western Europe. They want to diversify, and that was really cool. I was one of the 6 teams called Venus. We had a captain who is the emotional backbone of the team, and a navigator who is a sort of like the people guiding you. And we were 3 Djangonauts, so that's the people who are sort of the students. As you can see, we are getting into space territory. And that's cool because we had an infinite number of space puns. Like, if you didn't make at least one rocket emoji in reference to some spacecraft thing, then you didn't do it well. So that was like the side quest in this whole adventure, make space puns. And between me and my team, my team was from Uruguay, Nigeria, France, India, and me, of course. So that was really cool. And now I had some words about Djangonaut, because this is where I catch up on time. And I don't know where I am right now. Oh, it's cool. Some cool stuff that we did. We had a weekly meeting. So every week, like you plan to do something and you could sort of pick it out yourself. Our team was kind of accessibility focused. So I made my first small contribution to Django Core in an accessibility fix. And that was amazing. Like, finally getting your name in the contributor list of Django, which is an enormous framework. That was so cool. We had 3 presentations. One about how to survive being an open source developer. one about documentation, and one about accessibility testing. And we became quite close. I think at the 7th weekly meeting, there were 8 meetings, and at the 7th one, we were kind of getting emotional, like, oh, we're going to miss us. Like, you got really close in a very short amount of time, and it was so cool. And in the end, I ended up with, what did I end up with? A lot of cool stuff. I had 3 big pull requests. The third one has, in the last 3 months, taken 3 years of my life. It was finally done. And then one of the fellows was like, nah, we're not going to do that. And now I spent another 1.5 months to fix it. And hopefully it's going to be there in Django 5.1. We have 1 week until the feature freeze. And if that happens, it's maybe the biggest admin UI change in years. Like, I replaced the JavaScript collapsible field set things. If you have no clue what it is, doesn't matter. With native HTML details, and added some accessibility fixes. Pretty cool. So I got new friends, got my PRs, got a cool certificate. Could have been a t-shirt too, but it was a certificate. And I finally got my DSF membership, so Django Software Foundation. You kind of get a membership if you're being selected for that and after being a contributor, which was cool. And then came my goal. My goal was exposure, and I got an email from someone who I know from Fostodon, of all places. Don't say social media gets you nowhere. A blind developer who is he was already happy with my PR. Then he was like, okay, yeah, I'm actually the accessibility director of a American accessibility consultancy company. Do you just want to have a talk? Because we need someone with your skill set. And I kind of rocket boosted out of my chair at that point. So I just very nicely be like, yeah, I'm interested. Yeah, sure. And I was like, yes, And well, I sent them my first invoice this week. So, we're getting there. It's super cool. And it's fun because I really love accessibility, but I kind of stepped out of the business. And now, thanks to open source, I'm getting back to my favorite subject. And that's just awesome. Okay, and then some tips. I had actually prepared a couple of slides, or I wanted to do a couple of slides full of tips. Like, what did you want to know before you became an open source developer? So I was like, oh, let's ask the nice people on Fostodon about that. And so I open sourced this question. And I was like, yeah, sure, nothing's going to happen. But then my mention sort of exploded. And now I have another presentation worth of tips. So what I did instead, I hope this one works. I collected the answers in the blog post. And if it doesn't work, my blog is, you can find it, it's just my name.nl. And my blog has a search function, so if you search for OSS, I see someone says it works, it's cool. The URL is so long that the QR code was huge. But it works, cool. And I wasn't expecting so much good feedback because, well, I spent 14 years on the bird side, which is a hellhole and never gets you good answers. But Fostodon and Mastodon people are awesome, seriously. And some of the cool tips they gave was, I think the first important one was, you must pick a project that you are enthusiastic about. Because if you pick something just because it's popular, then you're going to get bored with it. You don't have motivation to fix it. I love Django admin and accessibility, so for me it was very natural to work in that space, but I'm not going to work on the ORM. No, just not my thing. So that was a good tip. And their other tip was to accept that maintainers don't have to accept your vision. And actually, I have a very cool quote about that in a minute. It's a bit of an emotional roller coaster to be a contributor. Like I said, my collapsible field set PR it has taken me through the entire emotional spectrum in the last 3 months, and I needed to step away from my computer every once in a while to just not think about it for a minute. And that's a thing, like someone actually said, if you really can't get in line with the maintainers, just make your own fork and use that one. Like, the maintainers don't have to accept you. And they are humans too. Like, they only work, they usually don't get paid for this. So they're doing this in their spare time. They're doing this without getting paid for it. They're, and they're humans too. So, and they get a lot of, let's not get demonetized again, but they get a lot of mess over their head. And so they were like, okay, just be as helpful as you can. Like, if you want to contribute, do your due diligence and like do your research, tell them what you did, send a PR instead of a complaint if you can, or don't complain. Like, it's not nice, and say thank you every once in a while. And that was really fun. And a lot of these people, contributors, they tend to do too much. Like, you kind of put all your energy in there. So the other top tip was just, step away. The project will be here tomorrow. And there was a presentation during Djangonaut Space by Carlton Gibson, who some of you probably already know, since he's very... Oh, there we go. That was me pressing a button when I shouldn't. He is very active in the Python community. And I actually linked that presentation in the blog post that I sent you. Oh, spoilers. This always happens when I have a button in my hands. Like, I'm going to use this as a tool. Never give me buttons. So I highly recommend, if there's just one thing you take away from this, go to that blog article that I shared and look up Carlton Gibson's presentation, which is linked in there. And my God, I need him as a soundboard, just doing all the motivational stuff. Iver, I now destroyed my timer, so... 8 minutes? Okay, I actually then made 2 shorter slides, which is awesome, because now I can talk more. But before that, I want to share this very cool quote that I saw yesterday. And for those who are not reading, it's a toot. It's from Fosstodon, so sort of what was a tweet on Twitter is a toot on Mastodon. It's by Marijke, who is also a very active Python community member. I'm very underselling here right now. Sorry, Marijke. Look her up. She's awesome. Well, her handle is in Fosstodon as well. And she said, we don't say congratulations when someone becomes an open source maintainer. Instead, we say congratulations, thank you, and sorry. And it is completely true. Like, you are going to go through an entire emotional spectrum because you can have an idea, that one gets debated, and either it gets accepted or shut down, hopefully in a nice way. We have a few very unpleasant maintainers in the Python community, but most of them are really cool. Like the community in Python and Django, they're so awesome. But then once that thing, your idea finally came through in triage, so like someone's finally going to build it, then someone's finally going to build it. And since it's your issue, you're usually the first one who's going to fix it. Or you have to accept that it might take months before someone's going to pick it up. So that's the thank you part. And the sorry part is everything that comes after that. The Django fellows in particular, like Django is very backwards compatible. It doesn't develop as quickly as a fast API does, for a reason. So the Django fellows are ruthless. Like, they are so strict in what's allowed and what isn't. So that's, like I said, my third PR, I finally had it done, and then it wasn't, and I had to write it all over again. 3 years, 3 months of my life. Well, but we got a cool result. And they do it not to be mean. They do it because, thousands of people are going to use this. And if you break something, you break this for thousands of people. So you have to accept that this is a thing. And I think another liability, particularly for us, is we are Dutch. We are very direct. And if you work, I think you work a lot with US American people, and they sugarcoat their words so badly. Like Dutch directness is super, super rude to them. And if you want to get something from them, they're going to wrap it up in so many fluff words that you're not entirely sure what they mean. And there's every country has its own language and culture, and you kind of have to get used to this. I actually got a beautiful book tip called The Culture Map by Erin Meyer, also mentioned in that article, so you can just read it back. That's just an entire book dedicated about communication differences between cultures, which is really cool. I have it. I haven't read it yet. You know, you buy books to not read them, as one does. But I have it, so that's the first step. So this kind of gets us to the end of the presentation. And, you know, any landing you can walk away from is a good one. And I know that Chuck didn't mean spacecrafts, like he meant airplanes, but, you know, I put a disclaimer here, so it's now about spacecraft. And I landed back to Earth after 8 weeks of Djangonaut Space, and I was just so happy to have done it. And it changed my life, like in less than half a year, my entire life was changed by it. And that's ridiculous. Like, how often does it do it? Do you get that? And then suddenly I was friends with some of the most prominent contributors of the framework. I was like, wow, so cool. And I'm actually hopefully going to get back into space as a captain, so the emotional backbone for the next round of Djangonaut Space. It's kind of almost confirmed, but I'll hear it pretty soon. But it's just, I'm not ready to let go of this spacecraft yet. But I now have my own rocket. I'm in the pilot seat now, so that's different, but it's cool. Okay, let's breathe again. I absolutely am not breathing today. Apologies for that. But that was also my last slide. Thank you all for listening and for being here. And if you have any questions, shoot.